Hi, welcome back. In this chapter, we're going to look at the 6th move bishop e3, e5, knight b3, bishop e7, and now 8th move sidelines. The position we are going to talk about is position after e4, c5, knight f3, d6, d4, takes on d4, knight takes d4, knight f6, knight c3, a6, and here 6th move bishop e3, e5, now knight b3, main move, knight f3, obviously looked at in the other chapter, and here I recommend the move bishop e7. One of the reasons why I recommend bishop e7 over bishop e6, as I told you in the introduction to the bishop e3 line, against the bishop, against the English attack, that bishop e6 move is just as good as bishop e7. After f3, we can still play bishop e7, but against the sidelines, I chose bishop e7. I think it gives us somewhat more flexibility. And here there are two main moves. Obviously, the 7th move, the 8th move, sorry, already f3. That is the English attack, the purest English attack. There's move h3, which is a serious line. It can also arise after moves 6 h3, e5, knight b3, bishop e7 here as well, and bishop e3 now. It transposes to that as well. But besides f3 and h3, there are a few other lines where white is trying usually to push for f4. There are not so many, so this should be a short chapter. This is one reason why I like bishop e7. There are not many sidelines here. First of all, there is move knight d2. That is the move that we look at under the 7th knight f3 move order. After bishop e7 here, the knight d2 reaches the same position. So that's in a separate chapter. There is a move 8 bishop e2. Again, we look at this in a different chapter because it essentially transposes to the line after 6 bishop e2, e5, knight b3, bishop e7, and now bishop e3. When white plays these setups with bishop on e2, white is usually aiming to go short castle. So these are different type of positions. And move 8. Queen d3 is actually possible, but the idea is again to play bishop e2 and after bishop e6 and transpose to bishop e2 chapter once again, the 6th move bishop e2, e5, knight b3, because with the queen on d3, castling long is obviously not ideal. The queen will just get hit by all sorts of moves on the queen side after knight d7, and then the queen is just overexposed on d3. The two moves we have left, and these are the two main moves of this chapter, is f4 and queen d2. f4 is actually really bad. Here, f4 usually should not be pushed unless the bishop is on e6. That's a general rule in the niner, especially here with the bishop on e3. We can just play a short castle. And yeah, when f5 doesn't come with the tempo, this is pretty bad for white. If white tries to castle long, which is the usual setup, then the pawn on f4 is also really terrible because the e4 pawn now lacks protection. Usually we need that f pawn on the f3 square. Now we play knight b7, long castle, and b5. And white is just not able to protect the e4 pawn properly with threatened b4. And we want to go also bishop b7, just really quite terrible for white. So f4 not a good move here. Some people might play by mistake because after h3 in some lines where the bishop is on e6, there f4 makes sense, but this is basically not here. Against h3, we also don't play bishop e6 running ahead. 8th move queen d2 is then the main move that we should talk about in this chapter. And the idea white has, he wants to start with queen d2, then go long castle, still keeping the option of f3. And perhaps then using the fact that the f2 pawn hasn't moved to push f4 instead. So main line here is indeed to comply and just play the same way, like bishop e6 and castle and knight b7. But instead of that, I recommend a very strong principled move, knight g4, using the fact that white hasn't played f3 right away, a very principled move. And one justification of that is that white cannot castle long. I mean, he can castle long, but he should not, because knight takes e3, and now if queen takes, then we win the queen suddenly on this little trick. And you know, you may think this never happens, but believe me, it can happen, especially in a blitz or a bullet game. I one time blundered a similar thing with white in a bullet game. It happens. So after 9 long castle, knight takes e3, white has to take the pawn. And yeah, obviously these pawns are not ideal at all. These are isolated double pawns. And black just develops bishop 6, 95, 97. And it leads to a position we looked at in the other move order, where we can just sacrifice this d6 pawn, and these weaknesses are just terrible for white. And one thing I should say about knight g4 in general, the idea of trading the knight for the dark squared bishop is not in itself a solution to all our strategic problems or anything like that. In fact, by trading the knight, we weaken the control over the d5 square a little bit. But here there is this important motif that white cannot castle long. So because of that, it actually works out very well for us. So white has to waste some time here if he wants to castle. Besides long castle, look at move knight d5. Now knight takes e3. Here we look at the fe3 option, bishop 6 long castle knight d7. We looked at this through the other move order. And here I continue the line with knight d7, queen d7, queen d6, queen d6, rook d6, king e7. As I mentioned, this pawn sacrifice is tremendous. First of all, in general, in such positions, this extra pawn is not so much felt on the queen side because there's no passed pawn here happening anytime soon. White is not pushing them. Secondly, the e3 and e4 pawns are very weak. And doubled, and they will be hit after knight f6. And very importantly, the knight on b3 is a very bad piece, and all that together, in fact, makes for black to have a slight advantage here. Also, you want to push on the queen side with a5, a4, or b5, b4, and so on. Gain a lot of space and have all the initiative. White's pieces are quite poor. Also, the bishop on f1 is not doing much. So definitely a good pawn sacrifice to keep in mind. After knight d5, move knight takes e3. White can take with the knight. Actually, I played this once as a youngster against Darius Švirš in a tournament for young players, and already during the game I realized that life is not all about the control of the d5 square. I understood it quite quickly as I got outplayed in the game, and I was actually lucky to make a draw there. We just developed with bishop e6. Bishop c4, knight d7. And black gets a very easy play. We want to bring the knight to f6 or b6, have some sort of control over the d5 square, and white is mostly in these positions struggling for good piece play because of this knight on b3. It's of course always misplaced in these positions. Line continues with short castle. Queen b3, rook c8, queen d3, white is trying to reinforce control over the c4 bishop, c3, and now knight b6. If white takes on e6 here, or in general, we recapture back and have this control over the d5 square thanks to the e6 pawn. All these positions, as a rule, are just very fine for black, unless there is something concrete that white has, but it's not the case here, so that's fine for black. And bishop d5 is the alternative, trying to, to still fight for the d5 square. Play queen c7, rook d1, and now very strong. Sorry, queen c7 was to defend the b7 pawn. Rook d1, and now a strong move, bishop g5. We would like to take this knight on e3. That's the good knight that is guarding the d5 square, and leave white with this bad knight on b3. And if white takes on e6 and takes on d6, we take on d6, rook d6, take on e3, f3, and knight c4. And we have a little double attack here. And an important nuance is that rook takes e6 is losing the rook to king f7 when the rook is suddenly trapped in the middle of the board right there. So this works out well for us. After knight d5, knight takes e3, queen takes e3 is also looked at. Now we play bishop e6. Here, white's problem is once again that he cannot castle long because of bishop g5, and that's a big deal. If white plays rook d1, then we go knight d7. There are similar positions as such in the 6 bishop e2 or different neither variations, but here basically white has a pretty poor version. His queen on e3 is misplaced, and he's yet to develop this bishop and castle. Meanwhile, we are always okay here. This knight on d5 can be captured if need be, and the knight on b3 is the problem knight white has to deal with. Knight takes e7 makes sense with the idea to castle long, but now white is left only with pretty poor pieces. Now we take queen 7, long castle, knight c6, f4, and here there are different options, but I like this move f6, an unusual move. But here the idea is that after f5 we go bishop f7, and we can still decide where to castle. We can either castle short and play on the queen side with a5, or castle long and push d5. In any case, the position is looking good for black. This hole on d5 is not under white's control at all anymore, and the knight on b3 is and bishop on f1, they are clearly not well placed. That is for knight d5, and now let's look at the move knight g3. The idea of knight move g3. The idea of g3 is not to fianchetto the bishop or anything, but in fact is to prepare long castle and meet bishop g5 after capture with the move f4, where the g3 pawn protects the f4 pawn. That's the idea of the move g3. Bishop e6. I also give the option of knight d7. It's actually quite a fine move. The idea is that after long castle here we take the bishop, queen e3, and play knight f6, guarding that d5 square with the other knight, and after f4 we move out of the pin on the d file and want to play b5 short castle. Again, nothing to complain here about for black. After knight g3 I also give the move bishop e6, long castle, take on e3. We can also postpone it, but the point is that if we postpone it, white gets the option of knight d5. Sorry, that was a knight d5, and if knight e3 he can take down with the knight, which is not a big deal, but it's just an extra option, so we can take immediately. Also, there is no real need to postpone. I mean, at some point you just take. Also, if white plays f4, we just want to take at some point on e3, so we take it here, queen e3, and now knight d7. And now I try to move f4 here for white with the idea f5, and we play b5, and excuse me, f5. f5 was a long-term idea. Obviously, f5 is not yet possible because of bishop g5. See, when I told you that white can always blunder it, I was not kidding. White can always blunder it, even here, f5, bishop g5. Now king b1. Now white actually wants to go for f5. Here we play queen b6, offering a queen trade, but mostly as the queen trade will not happen, we just grab some squares, some dark squares. And once the queen goes, because the endgame is very comfortable for black, obviously with the bishop pair and the fine control over d5 square. In general, the good rule is if the b3 knight is not involved in fight for the d5 square, then white cannot dominate it. So queen e1, 14th is the move, avoiding the trade. And now we play knight f6, knight guards with d5 square, and f5 we leave the room for the bishop to come back. And here, if white plays a g4, which is the best attempt, he has to really desperately try to deflect our knight and get the d5 square for his knight. Then we play b4. It's important for us not to give up this d5 square with the knight, so we hit the c3 knight before white gets to hit our knight on f6. And now the line continues with knight d5, rook d5, bishop c6. And now, very strong idea for white is to go bishop c4. Strong exchange sacrifice. If white is to move his rook, then he will lose the fight for the d5 square. Bishop c4 is very cool. And now we can simply take, of course, and play rook c8, but white has some compensation for the exchange. Hard to say if it's you know, more than enough for just nice compensation equality or not, but better to not fall into the white's plans and go for counterplay with 19th h5, leave the rook hanging for now, and after after h5 g5, which is very creative, now we take on g5. We don't have to go for the exchange once again, and after rook d6 we can trade the rook with rook d8, and after rook takes d8, bishop takes d8, we have dynamically balanced position. We want to push a5 a4. Both the kings are safe for now, but we've got the bishop pair, and we're happy that we've traded the weak d6 pawn, and the position is basically quite unclear, but black has a lot of potentials on the dark squares. So those are some sample lines. I think what is important to know is that queen d2, move 8, we just meet it with knight g4 before white can castle long. So obviously, you know, it would be foolish to do that after bishop c6 long castle. Now knight g4 because the king can move away. and there is no more bishop g5. So do go knight g4 immediately, and after that, white has to already be very inventive to make sense of his position. After, for example, g3, there were already two options, knight d7 and bishop e6. So not many problems for black. Not many dangerous sidelines as we had seen. So I propose we now move on to the next chapters and study these exciting 8 move f3 and 8 move h3, because there is a lot more challenging play happens, and a lot more exciting times are awaiting us. So thank you for watching.